The president is going to be making a court appearance today in Washington, D.C. after being indicted again yesterday. Steven Portnoy, ABC News national correspondent from Washington, here to tell us about security preparations, things of that nature in advance of the former president's appearance today. Steven, thanks for joining us on the Big 89. What else can you tell us about the big day in Washington?
Well, look, it's historic. In the same federal courthouse where the Watergate conspirators were tried, former President Donald Trump this afternoon is going to stand before a magistrate judge and answer to charges that he conspired to subvert American democracy. It shouldn't last very long. This is an initial appearance in an arraignment. The former president will enter his plea. Conditions for his release will be set. He is then expected to fly back to Bedminster, New Jersey, immediately after his arraignment. This is the first step in what will be a lengthy process. And look, the prosecutors would like this case to be brought to trial quickly, and I imagine that the Trump defense attorneys would like to drag it out as long as they possibly can, because the former president has a strategy. He wants to be elected the next president. If he is elected the next president, he would be empowered to pardon himself or potentially, and likely, I should say, appoint an attorney general who would seek to have this charge dismissed.
Well, this is interesting because we were talking about it yesterday. The special prosecutor, Jack Smith, is saying, hey, I'd like to have this done in 70 days, which I don't know that for a case of this import. I don't think a case has ever gone to trial like that in 70 days or before a judge within 70 days. So that's highly unlikely. On the flip side of it, you just pointed out the president would love to kick this can down the road way after November of 2024. And I know that you're not a prognosticator, Stephen, but I mean, what does your sense tell you? Somebody wants to rush it? Somebody wants to delay it? What happens here?
I don't know, but I think, look, it'll be up to Judge Chutkin to decide. One of the things that the defense attorneys will ask of her is a venue change. They want this case moved out of Washington, D.C. The argument is that the people of this city are too democratically inclined, and therefore the former president couldn't possibly get a fair trial here. Only 5% of the voters in the last election chose him. Legal experts we've spoken to about this say that not a single defendant in the January 6th cases that have been tried here have had any luck with that argument. They have repeatedly failed to persuade a judge that a fair-minded jury of Washington residents couldn't possibly be the trier of fact in a case involving a January 6th defendant. So we'll see what happens. Ultimately, the argument that the defense attorneys will also make is that the prosecutors are seeking to criminalize the free speech of Donald Trump, the political speech in particular, and they're seeking to criminalize the former president's use of lawyer-provided counsel. The idea that he co-conspired with attorneys means to the defense lawyers that he was working with lawyers within the law to see how far the law could be stretched within its bounds, and taking that all the way to the Electoral Count Act and the joint session of Congress on January 6th. But the prosecution will argue that there was corrupt intent, that phony slates of electors advanced to essentially, it was a lie, is what they're arguing, and a lie on paper. And pressure was unduly put on the vice president and state officials to undermine the popular will, and that the prosecution believes that ultimately Donald Trump was at the head of the conspiracy and he should be held criminally responsible.
Yeah, well, we'll all be watching this afternoon and be looking at the road closures and when that opens and to see what happens next.
Steven Portnoy, ABC News national correspondent in Washington. Big day there.
Oh. Can I just say, Steven, welcome back to ABC News. You were very well missed here, and we're happy to have you back on WLS in Chicago.
It's good to be back on the Big 89.
Thanks,
he said it perfectly. Perfect. Thanks for joining us today, Stephen. We appreciate it. Big day in Washington, D.C.